I didn't get that. We're going to call this city council work session meeting to order. First of all, before we get into the discussion, Scott Marshall, city manager, I want to introduce our new assistant city manager.
Mayor, council, public, I want to introduce you to Eric Clausen. Eric is our new assistant city manager, and one of the items in his portfolio that he will be managing is our capital projects program. So I'll introduce him more formally and give a little bit of his background at the appropriate time in our next work session, which is where we normally introduce employees. But I wanted you to know who this strange guy was sitting at the table. So, today is his very first day, so be gentle and be kind. We want him to stick around a while. Welcome, Eric. Thank you.
Okay, now we're going to get into a discussion of the quarterly capital improvements program. Brian, you want to take it away for us?
Good evening, Mayor, council members. I'm gonna go off script a little bit tonight. I'm gonna start out with the Pigeon Point boat landing. And I got two individuals in here with me tonight, J.W. Weatherford of Oakland Marine and Zach Hutcherson with Davison Floyd. And they're gonna come up and discuss the project some with you, so you know exactly what was submitted. I know a lot of people in here have questions, and these two individuals will be able to provide some of those answers.
Is it possible to show the plan?
Yeah, sorry. Go to the desktop. You want it on this right here, or there, or do you want it on?
It's on which one PowerPoint I have on the desktop, right?
Yeah, that's fine. Which one?
Pigeon Point.
Left. Then just next to mine then?
Which one's that here?
I guess second or third one.
This right here.
Yeah, that's.
Okay, before we get started, I just want to mention that we have Councilman Mitchell on the phone. He's on Zoom. He's zooming in from New Zealand. So, welcome, Mitch.
Hey, yeah, good evening to everyone. Glad to be here.
It's Wednesday morning where you are?
Yeah, it's Wednesday about 10 whatever in the morning, 10:45 or so.
Can you tell us what's gonna happen here tomorrow morning?
Okay, Brian, you want to go ahead and start it?
Councilman, I'm Zach Hutcherson. I'm with Davison Floyd. Just wanted to give you guys an update based on our last meeting in December. We have submitted to the Army Corps, and we have just signed and submitted back to DES for CZC permitting. Based on the direction that we got, which was to bring the elevation to that 9 from 8.75. As well as the permitting for this process has included not just the boat ramp, but also the kayak launch in the Pigeon Point Creek. The plan that you see on the screen here is the civil plan, not the plan that was submitted to the Army Corps. The reason for that is when you do an Army Corps permit, you usually want to show the maximum extent of what you could or will be doing. And that permit's good for 5 years, and that's why we did that. This plan is not what was submitted to the Army Corps. This is what was submitted to CZC and will be submitted soon to the city of Beaufort, which just focuses on the Pigeon Point boat landing and does not include the plans of Pigeon Point Creek. Just wanted to give you an update on that part of the permitting process. As far as budget, which you guys requested, we are about 80% through building a budget cost. We're still trying to get numbers back from some builders on cost. So we'll have that soon. The hope is beginning or middle March. And then the rest, as far as design goes, we were able to reduce the amount of chambers and reduce some cost of the stormwater system. And we were able to meet all the design storms for this project. That's the update. just wanted to give you, do you guys have any questions or any concerns? Help with?
The only question that I have is on one of the comments that you just made in regards to the 9-foot elevation. I remember it being 8.75, and I think in November, Mr. O'Quinn kind of provided evidence as to why that was necessary. I don't remember the direction being 9, but maybe that didn't come from us. Maybe that came from did the direction come from the city to do 9, or was that through permitting? You guys found out that you had to go to 9, or where did that come from?
That was through the last city council meeting,
Okay.
After the conversations with the public comments and, after we reviewed the surveys and, then that's essentially what the decision was, let's just go with 9, which would be the maximum protection for the landing. And it's really kind of the standard that we're trying to achieve, whether it's Waterfront Park or any of these other landings that we're working with Beaufort County, is that, that's the elevation that we're seeing, is you're getting, well, I think the last time we talked about sustainability, that's where you're getting into sustainability for the amount of money that you're putting into a project. Once you're at elevation 9 feet, you're getting prolonged protection at that elevation. And it really reduces when you go lower. And so that was the direction that we were giving, because it really, the cost was almost negligible. That's what Zach was kind of inferring with being able to hit those reductions that we were in the containment, and that was coming from the elevation change. So there was negligible price increase for getting to that standard elevation that we think is going to give us maximum protection and cost sustainability.
Okay. And if I'm just thinking back to our conversation in May, August, and November, I think that the discussion was, get to a point to where we can submit for permits with the understanding that, what we ask for can always be dialed back, but you can't go the other way. So even some of the stuff that we may see here may not be true to what is built, but we permit for that, knowing that we can pull back. Is that right?
And we do that on all permits,
Right.
whether it's residential, commercial, municipal, for your tax ID that's doing the permit. The most cost-effective thing to do is ask for, if money were no option, like what the works would kind of be. Knowing that if that's approved, then you can construct under that, and you have 5 years to begin. And then, there's also extensions that you can put onto that. And so that's, we feel really best practice for us as the contractor, for our client. We recommend anyone, if you're going to do a permit, you're whether you're planning on doing a bulkhead, if you're just wanting to do a dock, you ask for everything. You don't have to build anything. But once you get it approved and permitted, then that's done for at least 5 years.
So things that were approved beyond this, we have no intention.
Sure.
So if we decide to scale a dock back, say from 100 feet to 75 feet, that would be considered a minor revision.
And that would be a minor amendment is the only thing. That's a very simple and common thing that's done through permitting process. Both through the Army Corps of Engineers and South Carolina BCM, just across the hallway.
What, in terms of time, if you do an amendment to the permit, how long does that take?
Amendments are usually weeks, where typically when you're talking state or Army Corps Engineer permitting, you're talking like 6 months, 8 months, 10 months.
Yeah.
And you're talking weeks for an amendment change.
Not a total resubmit of a new permit.
No.
Which is actually what we just saw with the day dock down there, right? Because that was an amendment, and so we're expecting that, weeks, in a couple of weeks to get that back, opposed to,
Months.
another one, maybe day dock, whatever, but new applications will take longer. Yeah.
And the big thing is really typically you're getting in square footage. If you're changing square footage larger, that's when it becomes a problem. But as long as you're staying in the footprint or smaller, then, there's no such thing as a rubber stamp through state permitting or federal permitting, but it's one of the fastest things you can get back is gonna be an amendment.
And you know where we are right now with the permit process?
It's all been
We
submitted.
submitted in mid-January, so
Are we in the public comment period still? Okay. It's the end of the month.
if it's okay, if I could just point out a couple more things that we included on this site plan, now that it's more in the final stages, I've added a flume to the median section here that allows water to get to the existing oak trees. These 3 oak trees in the center are pretty significant sized live oaks.
Zach. Yeah.
We have a pointer. Okay, fantastic, thank you. So this flume here will accept water from the higher elevation coming down the road, and the existing condition, that's generally what's happening, water is flowing around or through the median. With this proposed design, we're not gonna limit the water now that still go to these oak trees. Additionally, this hatching here and down here currently is concrete and riprap. It's not oyster beds, it's not grass, it's just kind of left over from previous construction, and just doing these constant minor repairs, these sometimes the marsh and a little bit of a mess. So what this is now taking the riprap, using it in other places here and as fill for the site and restoring this to a typical marsh condition. That's an improvement. Additionally, we've relocated the outfall pipe. It was over here closer to the upland portion, which can lead to scouring out the marsh during high flows. Now we've directed the pipe towards the river. And additionally, just as this is a future development, we've also included this riprap stabilization towards the adjacent lot, just to protect as this site gets improved, that any sedimentation or any changes of slope, we can provide a proper transition from uplands to marsh. Again, this does not have to be done. It's one of those things, just like the other dock, shoot for the stars and somewhere else. So that's just kind of where we're at. Those are the improvements we've shown. There's a lot here that are still not shown, like security cameras, like lighting. We haven't worked through that yet, but this is kind of where we're at right now.
On the riprap, is there any way you can use like a living shoreline versus riprap, or in this case, is it especially where the landing is itself?
Sure. What you have to do is to look at the elevations. We haven't done any of that study, any of that option yet. Right now, it's just simply figuring out where are we putting the bulkhead, what are the elevations. Those examples are something we can do in the future as we keep going with the project and finalize things. That's a possibility. I have to look at the elevation of where that is and what the requirements that the living shoreline requires, to make that feasible. But yes, we can look into that.
Can you explain to us how important it is to have the height at a certain level so that the infiltration system will work? Because I don't think everyone realizes that this site basically captures all the runoff and filters it through the infiltration system.
Yeah, so the proposed design has 2 inlets that collects water, that then conveys the water to our underground system. The underground system is not a closed system, it's an open system with gravel. So what the intent is that the water would run into the underground system, and as it stages up, depending on the rainfall, it can then be infiltrated towards the soils, towards the existing oak trees or anywhere else. Additionally, once the water stages up to a certain elevation, now it can be discharged out the pipe and out into the river. These elevations are all set by design requirements with the engineering department based on the SoLoCo requirements and pre and post basin requirements. So all that's been taken care of, but this system is now collecting all the runoff that normally in existing condition, everything's just running straight off into the water. All the oils, everything from way upstream or upwind is now currently just flowing into the river. Now it's being collected and treated before it's being discharged.
Any comments from council? Okay, I'm gonna open it up to the public. Any comments from the public?
Well, I got in here a little bit late. So is this the revised plans that we've been waiting for since last year?
This is the revised plan since December of last year that we.
Without the
Without the kayak park, okay. And so the plans that have been submitted for permitting, environmental services, is that, are those still considered preliminary or final plans?
Robin, can we get you to come up and give us your name and the address and we'll be seen by everybody who's watching.
Right.
Where we
That's
just
just right.
where the gentleman is, that way you be on the mic system.
Robin Copperness, I live at 2423 Pigeon Point Road. One house away from the boat landing. I guess my question is, the plans that were submitted for permitting, are those still preliminary, conceptual, or are those final plans?
Those are preliminary to get our approvals. Our finals can be submitted. I mean, essentially it's our final, but it's like a working permit that we can submit. So when we submit to BCM, there can still be changes and you can still get your approval. I mean, it's a little bit convoluted, but the plans that we have submitted to BCM are all that we need to get our approvals. And then any changes that we do, as we talked about with any amendment changes, once we get our final plan, that can be submitted after we get approval. But I mean, we've got, we're nowhere near a construction phase. And so all of this is just kind of part of the process. We get our concepts, we send it in for approvals. And once we get those and we get closer to construction, once the client, finalizes the budget, what we actually want to do, that's when we kind of hone in everything with BCM.
Well, and I talked with the Mackenzie Myers at the Environmental Services, and she was under the impression that these were sort of final plans. From their perspective, they thought they were final plans, not preliminary plans. And I asked her, if they go through the review and if it's approved, what sort of changes can you make afterwards? And they said, you can tweak it and make some changes, but any major changes you have to resubmit.
Right.
So my question is, why would you ask for the permitting now when you haven't come to your final plan?
Number one, I think it takes a while to go through the permitting process. That's the big thing. You want to get moving. But I guess we're going for the goal, if you will. You can always shrink it down. That's I think the purpose here.
Yeah, but they said that you still will have to resubmit for permitting,
No,
even if
it's
you
a
shrink it
amendment.
down.
If it's a matter of vision, you don't have to. If it's a matter of vision, you don't have to, which is why I asked the question.
But our problem with the community was that the things that we were seeing would require major scaling back, not minor scaling back.
Like what?
Well, the kayak dock, so I guess that's off the agenda now. the
I
kayak
think
dock.
that would, I don't see here, but I think that would be a minor. Would that be a minor?
It'd be minor.
It didn't sound like a minor, it looked like a big dock with a ramp and.
Don't worry.
It sounded minor.
But if it's approved, you can build that. If the state approves something, the state can't hold you to construct what's permitted. So you ask for as much as you possibly think you would ever want. And then once you get approvals, then you talk with the contractor with your budgeting and you decide, all right, this is what we can actually afford to build. And so once you get that, then you go back and do a minor amendment. This is what we're constructing. All of this has already been approved. This is the small minor changes we're going to make for construction. This is what we're building. Boom, you're done.
We're still a good 3 to 5 years out. And in 5 years or 3 years, we're gonna have to get new bids on what the job will cost. And we may say, we don't have the funds to do it what we initially planned, so we may scale it down. It might not be as long. So that's why you never know until you're ready to start the process to know if you have the available funds. I mean, and that's why we're shooting for the best of everything, but we may have to scale it down.
But the community wants it scaled down, so we're actually trying to save the city money. We don't want this big commercial boat landing here in a residential neighborhood. We just want a, pared down, functional boat ramp and small dock, but we don't need a Whitehall landing. We don't want it in our neighborhood. It's not doesn't reflect the neighborhood. We're not in a commercial district, we're in a residential neighborhood. So I don't understand why you're spending all this money building this big plans and shooting for the stars when we want it to be scaled back and save everybody money. And then everybody will be happy. I don't understand what the big rush is now. We've been waiting since last summer, waiting for revised plans, because when we all met last May, there was overwhelming negative blowback to what was proposed. And you all said, well, we're not gonna go to do the permitting yet. We're gonna have you guys come back with some drawings, some amended drawings, and scale it back, and then we'll present it again and talk about it. And we've been waiting ever since then, since last May. And I know Greg has asked repeatedly for the revised plans, of which none have been forthcoming. And then all of a sudden, I and our neighbors are one of only 2 people that received this notice in the mail for this permitting. And I was like, well, did I miss something? I didn't know that we were at that stage where we were getting permitting. And so I called all my neighbors and I talked to Greg, and nobody else had received that notice. And so here we are. I just don't understand what the big rush is now, when we really haven't come to an agreement as to what would be appropriate for this boat landing.
And I guess I'll just point back to, because the last meeting was actually in November, so we met in May, and I do remember that's where a lot of the Pigeon Point community came. We talked about not just the comments, but also the survey, and the fact that 47% of the respondents from the survey were actually in Pigeon Point neighborhood, and then picked out some of the highlights from that, which there was support for the kayak launch. There was support for safety and resiliency and lighting. And so that's kind of been the focus. But when we met in August and when we met again in November for our capital projects update, the conversation was, as I remember it, pretty even keel on, let's start the permitting process to get that going, with the understanding that we don't have to do anything, but at least we know that we'll be through that permitting process. If we say that there's a kayak launch on the permit, or that's been permitted, we don't have to do that. We can easily scratch that if the community doesn't want it, and it's the city's position that it's not in our best interest. But our focus has always been really, number one, resiliency and safety. So with that in mind, I mean, just going back to even this strong here, I mean, I wouldn't define this as commercial, and I guess everybody could define it in their own right, but I don't see this as a commercial landing, because really you're not adding any more parking availability or really anything at all to the footprint, a little bit, but I think that's more so to get your elevation up. And
What about the railing that's gonna go all around?
the railing, as I
don't want the
remember it in
rail.
November, was something that was safety, but it was one of the factors that would be potentially permitted, but removed if we could, because the community didn't support that. So I know that was a conversation piece in our November meeting, but I guess I just go back to the conversation has generally been, we'll permit now with the understanding that we don't have to do any of this, but let's get it moving to where we can at least get through that. And the reality is we may not be able to even find funding. We got the waterfront park that really is a priority focus.
That's right.
So, and as it should be. So we may not even be able to find funding, but we'll at least get through the permitting process.
Okay, well, as long as, so moving forward then with the understanding that if this goes through, this permitting, that you are going to give the community an opportunity to,
That's what Lisa said.
because what I don't want to have happen is that it's going to get approved, and then when we start saying, so, well, you know, you had your opportunity, you had your public comment period, and now we've moved along. I don't want that.
No, and I
think
absolutely
so.
see that.
I think so.
See that as a very fair concern, and I don't think that would happen. None of us would support that being the case at all. But, you know, there will be a lot of time for community engagement, and we get these meetings quarterly, and this will be a capital project that even after permitting will be part of those discussions every quarter, where not only you could engage, but, you know, I'm sure if Brian is our capital improvements manager, or if Eric is doing a role there, we'll meet with the neighborhood and the community members. I know Greg has been, you know, at most of our meetings following along too. So I would not think that there was any chance that the community would not be involved in this process as it plays out.
You know, getting back to your question about the handrails, you two correct me if I'm wrong, the handrails have not even been selected or picked out.
No, it's not structural, that's aesthetic. I mean, there'll be a requirement depending on how high the elevation is in some areas. And that's what we were referring to about, we'll try to reduce as much as we can, but all of that, that's just an aesthetic decision to be made much later on down the way.
All right.
So if it makes you feel any better process-wise, we have to have a final design before we can bid for a construction contract. And before we have a final design that we can take and bid for construction contract, it will have to come back through council, who will want to have significant public input before that time. So
So is this permitting application, is this just for environmental, what is this permit for then?
this allows us to keep the project moving forward, to get to a position where we can bring it back. And when we have the funds for construction and say, okay, what is it we really want to do with this place?
But the Army
And we
Corps,
can make minor revisions to what gets approved in this permit.
the Army Corps of Engineers does include environmental. That's part of the Army Corps.
Okay, so they're gonna be looking at all of that. So you all have the environmental studies and. Okay, thank you.
This will be your first bite at the apple.
Okay.
As you see, Robin, the process is slow.
Yeah, good. We like it slow.
Dan Salka, 905 Charles Fort, down Pigeon Point, and I apologize, I missed the last meetings. Being out of town all summer and to the fall. I want to poke the bear a little bit on elevation. And I know I missed some of those discussions. But when I think about the cost, now it's all neighbors, and first of all, I acknowledge that this is just not the Pigeon Point community's rent, this is the city's rent. And there are people interested all over town and in the county. So we're building for everybody, but we want it to make sense for what we have as a city. What's the total elevation rise that you're planning on?
For water,
For the height of the parking area?
illustrated of the proposed parking lot.
From the ramp up to 9 feet. The ramp right now is at what, like 5?
So is that?
What is the boat ramp at?
What's the increase going to be in elevation?
Oh, okay, so the current head of the ramp is approximately 5 foot.
Yeah.
Okay, so we're gonna add 4 feet.
Essentially where the wooden structure is now.
Yeah.
The base of that is 9 feet.
Okay,
So it's like a physical representation.
so that's, would you say that's a minor impact on cost? Or is
No.
it?
Going from 9
that
feet,
was
from
from
875 to 9 feet.
How about going from where we are right now? To 9 feet? You know, what is that, a 4 feet gain in elevation? Is my math right?
Yes.
Okay. How much of that drives the need for a bulkhead,
Elevation.
the elevation?
The need for the bulkhead is to two things: stop erosion and to make the most efficient use of the property that you have. So what that permit shows where the bulkhead wall is, we go all the way out to the edge of the critical line, which is still city property before it turns into critical line state property. And instead of it being sloped with erosion and have some riprap, you're able to take full advantage of all the property and go directly vertical up at the property line.
I understand that. So what you do is, so you're gonna have cost of raising ground, because you're raising the ground. You need to build a bulkhead, because right now we don't have a bulkhead and things just kind of go smoothly and flow. And then with the bulkhead, now that's gonna be high enough that is it, is the riprap and the fill gonna come right up to the top of that bulkhead? So then we add the expense of a railing to that. So I guess my comment is, when we look at how we scale this project after the permitting is done, will we have an opportunity to retain it at the current elevation and avoid those costs? So again, we preserve funds where we can afford to, dedicate or to put towards the future of the waterfront park. Is that an option you guys could draw up and cost that out? for
What's
city
the
council?
question? I'm sorry.
The question is, as we look at where we don't know what our budget is, we haven't even asked for a notional budget, saying, okay, design us a $2 million project down there, or, what would it look like for $1 million? So now we're getting a little closer to it. Now we got through the permitting hurdle. What can we look at so that, we say, okay, this is what it is here at 2 million, but where can we save $1 million? And if we keep it the same elevation, not have to go to bulkhead, not have to have the rail, how much does that save us? And there may be other areas of this also, but I think they start from the ground up, so to speak. So that's all I have. That's a question I kind of.
Well, I think at the current elevation, these spring tides, if you were here at a couple of the other meetings, you're underwater.
I understand. I walk down there all the time to watch it. Tides, and they're getting
worse.
And then it's gone.
Well, but I think it's eroding, and so I guess I don't know if you actually save or if you actually lose the landing altogether if you keep it at the elevation. And I'm not an expert in this, but I can just thinking back to some of the data that was provided in those last couple of meetings. That's exactly what the inclination is if you don't raise this, then it's going to continue to erode. It's going to continue to sink. Not only do you have the runoff issue and the pollution into the water, but you may not have a landing much longer. And so if that's the case, then I think the position would be, okay, well, do we even want a landing down there at all? Because then if you're gonna, just let it fall into the water, then okay, that's a position. You could do nothing. You could always do that. But I don't know that if we sacrifice to save in the budget, which certainly is a discussion to be had with, again, going back to the waterfront park, but I don't know that we would sacrifice the resiliency of the landing, because I think your problem only gets worse if you sacrifice that.
I've watched it for 6 years. I have not noticed any of that going away, except for the end of the ramp, which you
There
only
is
use
a
it.
tendency for the tides to be rising over time. That's what we're trying to plan.
I understand, but I go, what are the alternatives to
We're just trying to
raising?
make
Can
the
you
long-term
do a wider riprap?
My recollection from when Duncan
Again,
presented to us.
without belaboring it, I think you ought to have some courses of action to compare, do a little business case analysis on it. And, and crunch some numbers,
My
and then do a
recollection,
little risk assessment, so.
I'm sorry, my recollection from when Duncan presented to us was that if it was not elevated, it would not get approved. Is that accurate?
So it's one of those things, once you touch it, you have to bring it up to code standards. And so that's what we're doing here, is that if we do the opposite of nothing, which is fix it, the second we touch it and go to fix it, it has to meet code standards. So that's,
What's the code that drives the height of that land?
there's a couple different codes, but one of the main drivers is stormwater quality. And to meet those storm requirements, you have to treat the water. And if the land's already at the water, there's nowhere to treat the water. So you have to raise it to store it and treat the water. And then additionally, you want to protect your asset, you want to protect what you're building, so you build a riprap or you build a bulkhead to protect what you're building and to hold the water.
Okay, I won't belabor it. I just think it's worth looking at. improve the riprap and to hang on to what we have.
Additionally, there's impacts, right? So if you go too far coastalward with additional riprap, now you won't get permitted with the Army Corps. So staying within that existing limits of disturbance is also a factor.
So we could go and take it, have a look at it. If we need to downsize it, this is the major cost driver of it.
What you have to think about is that sometimes you can get a permit with one agency, but you're not gonna get the permit with the city. So we have to get the permit with the Army Corps, and we have to get a permit with DES and bring those permits to the city of Beaufort to get a building permit. They won't look at it until the Army Corps has even looked at it. So we can go to the Army Corps and say, hey, this is our plan. But as engineers and people that have permitted enough, we know, hey, we're not gonna get approved with the city if we're not doing what we should be doing with the Army Corps to begin with. So we can draw up 10 different plans and submit them to the Army Corps, and they can approve all 10. But there's only gonna be a couple options that's gonna get approved by the city based on code requirements. And that's what this plan is trying to achieve.
So city code? Is that the issue?
It's a combination, it's not just
City, state, and federal.
City, state, okay. So ought to be, kind of take a look at it. Do some good number crunching. Okay, thank you.
What else? We have a hand on, this one's. Yes, right here, Jasper.
Okay. Fast.
Hey, Phil. Graham Trask, 1211 Bay Street. I'd like to echo what the two previous speakers said. I'm really kind of scratching my head as a developer myself. I find it odd that you'd go and get all the permits before you know exactly what you're going to do. It just seems backwards. And it seems like there's a lot of money that is being spent on permits, but again, you don't know what you're going to do. And I'm probably getting on late here, but weren't we simply trying to fix the dock and I guess the ramp? Was that the problem that we're solving?
And if I remember correctly, when Mr. O'Quinn was presenting, he was basically talking about how that ramp, the way that it was, would come up with the tide and then basically be against the hinge there because the landing was so much lower. And it's actually the elevation that we're talking about bringing it up to is the elevation of the landing 30 feet behind that oak tree. And so you're really just bringing everything up to where that existing elevation is because it just slopes down so much. But then you had your ramp or your landing, when the tides came in, it basically got lifted up and would break.
So it's not functional. Is that what you're saying? The ramp, the landing doesn't function.
I think, no, it does now with what they've put in place. It does function now.
Okay, so what additional problem are we trying to solve?
The resiliency factor is the main one in front of us now, the environmental and the resiliency.
What? I'm sorry, I'm still puzzled. But don't we have all those problems all over so, I mean, are we facing that everywhere in our city if we assume rising tides and water? How did that come out of a problem with the ramp? Again, just seems like a big project that we're cogitating on coming out of this ramp issue. How did we get here, I guess is my question.
Going on with the ramp that include a fire truck can't go down the boat ramp currently. If there's a existing over trailer, a fire truck cannot go down and perform a turn. The current boat landing can only hold about 2 to 3 boats with trailers. The current boat landing is designed, has an elevation that most boaters know where to leave their truck because if it's a high tide, they don't want their truck to be flooded, so they're gonna park further up the hill. The current boat landing has low elevation in the median that's starting to, the saltwater starting to inundate the trees that are around there, including those oak trees. The existing boat ramp doesn't provide a safe access for ADA to the boat ramp. ADA cannot get to the floating dock or someone that's ADA to get to their boat. And there's a whole list of things the existing boat ramp doesn't meet. And the city did a survey in 2024 that I think we've all been kind of talking about, a lot of data points on who's for this, who's for the repair and why. And I think it could be important to maybe go back to that survey and remind everyone how we got here and why we're doing what we're doing.
And even before that survey, and this may be helpful for everybody to go back, but there was the facility study from 22 that's actually on the Airtable now for this project. And I think the information that came from that study is kind of what brought us here. I think that was your question, Graham, is what brought us to here. So we had the damage from the storm on the dock, but the upland area was graded as satisfactory or fair due to erosion. And so just going back and taking a look at that study that was done in October of 22 probably would prove helpful in to trying to determine how we got to the discussion that we're at right now.
Got it. Okay. Well, this was, and I appreciate that. And I think one of the things that you guys need to think about, and is the biggest thing on my mind, is unlike in past years, we just don't have a lot of money. And if you send out a survey, what you get is a wish list, I'm afraid. And we're going to really be faced with having to prioritize. And it seems to me, and this was my common theme throughout this meeting, is we're going to really have to make choices. And it seems that we're spending hundreds of thousands of dollars on assessments right now on something that doesn't seem to really be a priority. And it just is puzzling when we do have really big priorities. And it seems that's the common message that's coming across from the previous two speakers. And I continue to ask the question, what problem are we trying to solve? And anyway, I'll thank you very much for letting me chime in.
Thank you, Mr. Trask. Anyone else? Yes, sir.
Charlie Russo, 1231 Ladies Island Drive. Quick question about resiliency and the material for the bulkhead. What is the planned material? Is it a sheet piling or?
Yeah, it's a FRP composite, fiber reinforced polymer.
So would not require a orthotic protection? Okay, that was my concern. If you're doing steel, if you had to do a orthotic protection maintenance plan, that also gets costly in the long term. Thank you.
Anyone else? Last chance before we move on. Thank you all. Appreciate it.
Thank you very much.
The next thing I wanna talk about the Airtable. If you haven't seen the Airtable, this young man next to me, David Gregory, he works on it every single day. He goes to the job sites and he comes back and he puts the details out there where everybody can see him. So I encourage you to keep your eye on the Airtable so you can see what's actually going on. I'm gonna start out with the King Street project. Construction activities on King Street have resulted in minor impacts to local residents. Detour routes and maps have been posted on the city's websites, and off-site parking arrangements have been coordinated for its residents, affecting when work reaches the individual homes and driveway. First responders are being continually updated regarding road closures. Work began at the intersection of King Street and Hamilton Street and is progressing towards Carteret Street. The natural phase involving relocating underground utilities and conflict with the installation of new storm drainage infrastructure, including both the gas lines. The primary challenge to date has been managing groundwater condition. Buford Jasper Water and Sewer and Dominion Energy have been on site working collaboratively with each other. Buford Jasper Water Sewer Authority has requested additional water line replacement from King and Hamilton Street towards Pinckney Street. This portion wasn't in the initial scope of work, but once they started at Hamilton Street, and once they got started, they started seeing the ground was very wet between Hamilton and Pinckney. And so over the Christmas holiday, at least 2 occasions, they were called in to make repairs. So they're gonna have to come in there in the next few weeks and run a new water line.
Yeah, because it was pooling right there where Pinckney and Hamilton meet. That yard right there would fill up with water on any given downpour.
When they were doing some of the relocations, they found a valve in there that boy, my memory's failing me now. 1880. So you can see that that water system's been there for a long time, and it needs a little attention.
And every day I try to put new pictures so you can see.
You're doing an excellent job.
David, you want to go to
Which one do you want to go?
go to King Street?
I was just thinking,
Okay,
Charles?
no, I'm King because I still got some things to say about King. Up to February 13, Hires Construction has installed 337 linear feet of water line, 125 linear feet of sewer pipe, and 184 feet of linear storm drain pipe. It may seem like it's not very much, but the majority of time they have spent since they've been there is clearing the path for the storm drains. They had to relocate gas lines. If you've never seen them relocate gas lines, they actually weld on the gas pipes while they're still functioning. And
Yeah, and I have a picture of that, and you get to, I know the exact picture because it was kind of cool.
It seems they were.
No, it's not that one.
I gotta keep my distance from that picture.
I would have maxed my zoom out.
No, which one? When you were- Saw it. Okay. I know exactly which one, just give me 1 second, you guys. I just saw it. It was kind of dangerous.
it's that one right there. Right
No,
there. Yeah, it is. It's right there. Go back, right there.
The other one?
Right there.
Yeah.
Right there.
It's gaslight.
No, well, that one's one of it too.
Yeah, that's one, so you can see it right
You
there.
see them welding. And up on the road, you'll see this little gas sensor, and he constantly, it's over to your left, down. But he's got a little gas sensor, he constantly monitors the pipe as he's welding to make sure it's not leaking any gas. The individual doing the work, I think he said he was like 65 years old and he'd been doing it like 45 years, so.
Find a replacement for it.
Nobody's braving that.
Now, is this on the side of the road, or they're gonna actually, they're in the road?
The end of the,
In the road, okay, so they're gonna have to come back and pay on that.
Yeah.
because the road goes
That way. I think they're at the intersection of East and King Street.
No, they're not.
any artifacts now.
No,
They've also got that now.
no artifacts yet. The the completion date on this job is June 19th. We're still on target. We still think, we're gonna make it. We're hoping in the next 2 to 3 weeks, we'll be at Carteret Street and ready to cross over.
And that closure is just an overnight closure.
I think it'll be more than just one night. What their intentions are initially is, they're gonna shift the traffic over. So where the cars would literally park, that'll be a lane, and then one other lane will be in. So they plan on working, in the day and also at night.
What about, the noise in the residential areas?
It doesn't seem to have been a problem. I mean, I haven't gotten any complaints about the noise. It seems like a lot of the people are pretty fascinated. David, go back there.
to keep below 85 decibels.
You click on one of, let's see.
Which one do you want me?
I was gonna show you all the, like that one right there. You can see the groundwater, that was a brand new,
This one?
well, that one right there. That was one night. They went home and the next day they came back and all the pipe that they had put in, was full of water. And you can see how much water came in there.
What are we gonna do about the traffic on Carteret?
Well,
Vehicle drive.
they're just gonna shift the lane so that the cars will be going where the cars are normally parked, and then the one lane will still be open.
So it'll be basically 2 lanes still going, but it's tight.
Exactly.
Okay, good. That's an extremely busy corridor.
Let's see if there's anything out there.
Because I do like almost a daily pictures.
How far do they go down once they cross Carteret?
They go to West Street.
West, okay.
You'd be amazed the number of pumps they have out there.
Here's a good picture right here. This is the old pipe that they dug up.
Those are the old drain pipes that were in there.
What material is that, Mark?
It's like a porcelain. Over the years, there's been, repairs made, so you find all different type of things in there. You right there. It gives go right. The contractor built this safe zone for the residents so they could walk through there when they go to their off-site parking.
That's the residence for this. That's the place where they can walk, be safe.
Right now, we are, they're to the intersection of King and New. And that's putting in the water lines, the storm drain pipes, they're about a block behind. And you can pretty much see what it looks like once they finish doing all the work.
This is what the new pipes would look like.
These pipes are like an oblong shaped pipe.
They just put the pictures.
Okay, the next project I'm gonna discuss is the Charles and Craven. This project has experienced several unforeseen delays, including significant groundwater intrusion.
Hold on just a second before we go on. Someone will speak. Yes, ma'am.
You wanna stop any time?
Yeah, we
Hey, just have a few questions.
Okay.
On King Street, I'm Heather Winch, 309 Federal Street. And here are some of the questions. First of all, Hires is to be congratulated on doing such a good job within the neighborhood. And there's no dawdling going on over there. And I appreciate the city's cooperation in trying to ameliorate the effects of problems we've had with water shutoffs and so forth, and getting BJWSA back to where they need to be. But there are a few questions that have come up in the neighborhood, and I thought I would just bring them so we can get answers from the source. In terms of after the King Street drainage portion is completed, obviously, we will then have water flowing into the pond. And I know there was a widening contemplated for the Federal Street gate, the opening, because it could accommodate it, right, rather than using the pump station and so forth, like going to the, back to our meeting at Charlie Knott Park 800 years ago or whatever that was. And the question has been, any idea of when that aspect of the project would start? So that was question number one. Question number two is, I know it was discussed early on whether or not we would need to dredge the pond. And subsequent to that meeting in Shirley Knott Park, when it was, the engineers basically took a look and said, no, we won't gain anything out of that. There was a subsequent water line break at the corner of East and King last year during the winter, further silting the pond. So now our sandbar is approaching the size that you see out in the middle of the river. And just curious as to whether that is being looked at by the engineers as to whether there's going to need to be some dredging that's done after the fact, because obviously there's been a lot more silting in as they've been making their way down King Street. And then the third item escapes me at the very moment, that's why I wrote them down. Has the city determined the source of the water flow and the silting at the far southwest corner of the pond? This was pointed out to some city employees. So if you're standing on the southwest corner on the bridge, there is more additional silting and there is continuous water flow that is coming in at that point. Just trickle it sometimes it's more obvious. But it is now causing additional silting in that area. Nobody seems to know where the water is coming from. And it's coming even if it's a dead low tide. So it's not like it's the stuff that's coming underneath Federal Street. So just another thing to take a look at, because if we're going to solve the drainage problems, we don't want to create other ones. So those are my three questions.
So is that on the Federal Street side?
That is on the Federal Street side. On the, if you're standing looking north, no, looking north, it's to your left. So you're looking towards the post house. It's on your left, it's underneath the bush, but there's water running out of it. It was running out of it today when I walked past. And I pointed it out to a couple of city folks. And also if there's a way we could do maybe a little bit more proactive job of letting the first responders know. Because we did have a situation that occurred not too long ago with somebody having to have a fire department respond to something on Federal Street, and they didn't realize they couldn't get down Federal Street. That's not because of construction, it's because of a tree branch. And that tree branch actually took the top off of a truck about a week ago. Yeah. So, but anyway, if we could do maybe a little more proactive job with the first responders in terms of letting them know, you know, if you need to go to Federal Street, because the firemen had to walk from East and Federal all the way down to Pinckney and Federal. So
In their defense, it's a new tree, and so if you hadn't been there long, it's
yeah, like 150 years. So anyway,
email me.
okay, appreciate it. Thank you.
We have an attendee on the Zoom call, James White.
James, and do you want to open it up after each one, or do you want to get through this and then come back for questions?
Yeah, we can do that. We just come back, questions after he gets through.
Oh, okay.
Can you hear me?
If we take James and then do it from there, 'cause I think it'll take too long if we do it. Yeah.
Can you hear me okay?
A little light.
Go ahead, Mr. White.
Okay, thank you. James White, 521 New Street. And first of all, I would not classify this as a minor disruption, particularly in the area that they're at right now with King and New. With that said, we are extremely appreciative of all the work that's being done, and we certainly understand the culmination of the work and how it will benefit not only us but the folks on our street. So no reason to complain. That's probably why you aren't hearing any, but please note it is not a minor disruption, and there certainly is plenty of noise as well. So just want to make sure that that is out there. You've answered a lot of my questions. I think we were concerned about the continuing delay, and it's not necessarily a delay in the work, but moving the sewer lines now additionally with the water lines, and then the drainage coming, it has moved this project out till June. Just wanted to know if that was still the timeline. It sounds like it is. One of our other major concerns is that once we get to Carteret, you addressed that today as well, but once you get to Carteret, really wanting to understand where that traffic is going to go, and would like to at least put it out there that if we could avoid rerouting the traffic down New Street around that area, it would be very much appreciative. I don't know that we can handle the amount of traffic that's going to come through there. So sounds like there is a plan in place to allow. But again, if you were to visit today and yesterday, I'm not sure how that's going to work, but hey, these guys are professionals. And I'll end on that, is that speaking of professionals, Potter Construction and Hires has done a fantastic job of keeping us notified, of really working with us and really helping us through this. So I really commend those companies and really appreciate the relationship that they have with the community as they get through this. So thank you. I appreciate that.
Thank you, Mr. White. Yes, they are local companies.
Yes, I'm searching your office right now. In fact, the screen that you said that they showed on the side of the house in the pictures, the walkway for the residents, that's Jim's house.
Okay.
Mr. White was just speaking. So.
And as they progress down the road, they're putting the road back together. So I can't be positive, but I'm hoping within 30 days you'll start seeing the road all back together. Okay.
Coordination with Buford Jasper is gonna be a nightmare. All that stuff done. And I'm glad to hear that things are moving along. Okay, now to Charles and Craig.
Okay, now we're gonna go to Charles and Craven.
The second part.
I won't use the term minor inconvenience on Charles and Craven. This project has experienced several unforeseen delays, including some significant groundwater intrusion and the discovery of existing brick storm drain location within the alignment of the newly installed storm drain system. As of February 13th, 2026, Gulfstream Construction has installed 23 sections of 8-foot by 72-inch reinforced concrete pipe, and 3 major manhole structures for a total of 184 linear feet of pipe. If you've never seen a piece of pipe, this is quite a piece of pipe. I've never seen a piece of pipe this large. The workers can actually stand inside the pipe. It is an incredible piece of pipe.
This is the best picture that I have of what it looks like. That's the person's head.
72 inches?
Yep, 72 inches.
And the problem with a pipe like that is you don't have a lot of flexible or wiggle room as you move down the street. It pretty much has to go straight. And on at least 2 occasions, the pipe started to go a little bit crooked, and when it goes crooked, you can see how it's got that recessed lip. It won't lock together properly. So if it doesn't lock together properly, you have to take it out and put it back in. So it's really important to keep the pipe straight. And this job, along with King Street, has had an incredible amount of problem with water intrusion. When you're down that deep in the ground, the water table is extremely high, and those pumps run 7 days a week out there to try to get all that water out of that trench. Due to the adverse weather condition, the reopening of Charles Street and Bay intersection was rescheduled for Monday, February 16th. That was yesterday, and I know that a lot of the merchants downtown were ecstatic when they realized the intersection was open. Gulfstream contractors anticipate improved productivity once progress beyond Port Republic Street, as this represents the most technically challenging portion of the project. These intersections are loaded down with all different type of underground utilities. So they have spent an incredible amount of time in this one intersection to maneuver around all the utilities down there.
And this was just on Friday when they were paving.
The next Beaufort Jasper Water and Sewer Authority water shutdown is anticipated for February 25th. So that's like next Wednesday. The plan is to shut the water down. All the merchants and the residents in that area will be notified prior to them shutting it down.
You know how long that shutdown will be?
They're talking 2 or 3 hours, but I'm telling you, my experience,
Longer than
it hasn't always worked.
It's primarily businesses, right? And one residence?
That is correct.
And are they shutting down at night or during the day?
They're talking about doing it at night. Before this job ever started, they identified archaeological hotspots, and so based on the grant, they have Brockington Archaeological Services. It's on site monitoring all the work being done. Unfortunately, they haven't found anything as of yet. Fortunately.
did find some logs there.
Yeah, we found some logs. No, we didn't get any feedback on those logs. City staff continues to provide regular updates to the local merchants and residents. The expected completion date is December 31st, 2026.
Right, I thanked you earlier before the meeting, but I just want to publicly thank you on behalf of the business that you helped out. That was completely shut off by the feds, pretty much. Their business was shut off, and you got them back pretty much opened up today, so they can enjoy their business, and I know they really appreciate it.
Well,
Good job.
Sir, I appreciate you going out there also, because every time I come out there, they tell me who's been out there, and yesterday I was out there, and they told me who'd been out there, and they told me what your concerns were, and I took pictures. And then immediately Scott called me shortly after 8 o'clock and echoed what you had told him, and so it didn't take much to get the project moving.
They're happy. That's the main thing.
At this time, I'm going to ask Linda Roper to help me to discuss a few things.
Okay.
We're going to talk about we're going to talk about waterfront park, the day dock.
Same spot.
I like to brag about Linda, since Linda's been here 37 years. Every time I tell people that, she shakes her head, but Linda has a wealth of knowledge. And for me being new with the city, she's been incredible help for me.
Thank you. Anytime.
We'll start out with, we can start off with the Marina Day dock, and we can also talk about the waterfront park. that day dock also.
Okay. Okay, so the Marina Day dock. We are at the point where we have, submitted for permitting. Then, the new day dock, this is a replacement of the day dock that was there. It's a dinghy dock, but technically, it's the Marina Day dock. That's what it is referred to in the ordinance. I'm just trying to get myself oriented, trying to say, I always call it the dinghy dock. So it's the dinghy dock. It was damaged during Hurricane Helene. Several of the floats, several of the floats were damaged and floated away. They from boats hitting it and the waves. We have submitted for a new replacement. The new replacement will be a 10-foot. This particular configuration we have put in for a 10-foot dock instead of a 6-foot dock. That runs east to west. This also encapsulates the current pilings. So if you've been on that day dock, those pilings are on the outside of the day dock. That does not allow for mooring of boats on both sides. It's smaller, and I think that's why we've always deemed it as a dinghy dock, because the smaller dinghies come up there, and that's really all that can be there. So that the 144 feet or so of the east to west dock that is there is going to be it's going to be 10 feet. It encapsulates the pilings. The on land ramp will be replaced also. FEMA we've been working with FEMA. They have given us some mitigation. They're proposing some mitigation funds that will allow us to have e-pay wood on the dock for sustainability, as well as stainless steel brackets and things like that. So with that, we are with the RFP that will go out this week. We are looking to have that those improvements on that dock. I have, here is a map of proposed and current all of my copies. If you look on the last page of this, the last page has an impact that shows you that a 10-foot dock is actually, if it's going from 6 to 10, to about 2 feet of it is piling, and then only 2 feet will be sticking out on the other side of the pile. We've received, as far as funding goes, we've only received about $43,000, and I think Alan can come up and kind of tell you the financial funding of where the cost of this stuff. We are estimating about $200,000 for the replacement.
We get a FEMA reimbursement. Yes, with FEMA reimbursement project, we got about $43,000 from the state already for state insurance. That leaves about $157,000 that we're going to submit to FEMA for reimbursement for this project.
The hope would be that through insurance and FEMA, we'd be able to cover part of this.
Yeah, correct.
What we don't want to do is slow down the construction of it, which is why we're going out to bid now during the permitting process to try to accelerate as much as possible. It may be that we will come to council to ask for a budget amendment to temporarily pull some funds from our fund balance and Parks and Tourism Revenue Fund, so we can do this and then reimburse the fund and get this reimbursement to our meetings, so we can keep moving.
Has FEMA speeded up the process? Because I know it took.
Yeah, they can pull that on a weekly basis and kind of have the finish line just about there. Haven't got the final obligation on the project yet about moving that direction. Good.
Yeah, I am. So one caveat of the funding from FEMA is that there can be no on-water construction during manatee season. And that particular time frame is May 1st through October 31st. So we are in hopes that we get the permit back and that's why we're running the RFP simultaneously with waiting for the permit, is that we can get a contract and hopefully have council
Construction
approve that
finished before.
before May 1st.
Push.
We,
That's why we're not waiting.
yeah, that's why we went ahead and are pulling the trigger on the RFP. We're not gonna wait. One of the stipulations of the RFP and award of contract will be that you cannot have on-water construction during from May 1st through October 31st. And then we honestly think it can be done by May 1st. I will say that Alan and I were we heard through when we were talking to FEMA, it was April 1st through October 1st. And we're like, absolutely can't, that's not gonna work. When we had our meeting last week, we really just drilled them a little bit more, and after, Google's our friend, right? Come to find out, manatee migration in our region really doesn't start until May 1st. They were able to adjust and say, we'll give you May 1st instead of April 1st.
Wait on the water.
Yeah.
Would it be possible if we billed FEMA for the full amount and then whatever, if we were to get extra, we just reimburse the state back, and that way, if there is a shortfall, there won't be one.
Yeah, well, we already got the money from the state, so that's already in our bank account. And then we're also, the FEMA funding will be for this project, and also kind of our plan is probably for starting November 1st to do the other docks as well, the A dock and D dock and the marina as well. We'll use FEMA funds for that as well, but I think we want to keep the state funds and then try to see if we can use all the FEMA funds available.
Yeah, I didn't know whether or not we could try to do FEMA for this full amount for this, and that way we can use, the state funds.
Yeah, the state funds are kind of broken out between our day dock plus our other docks as well. So I want to kind of just from an accounting and project standpoint, just want to kind of show the sources I want to go there.
That's not doing that.
The state's not gonna want you to keep the money in your account. Be spent.
Right.
So I know we got hopes to get the day dot, essentially both of them done before July. And we got maybe the hurdle of manatee season starting, not being able to do that. In the event that we can't, is there a contingency conversation to utilize the marina space, some of the marina space as day dot parking? Because I know that every time I go by, there's a lot of empty slots there that could be used for that. Is there any discussion at all on whether or not that will be a good plan B?
We haven't had that discussion, but we can. That's certainly a possibility. The other thing I will mention is, we need to verify this, but I believe most of the construction for the solution for the day dock traversing over the promenade, getting into the park is all above water. So it's not actually in water construction.
Right, so that one wouldn't be
There's some
disturbed by.
piling.
There's some piling, so they'd have to do this.
Because there'll be some pilings on the outside.
So they got to those first.
Right, if they did that, if they were able to do that
Get
first,
that done before manatee season, they could finish the rest of the project.
Yeah.
So that helps a little.
and as far as when we talk about the waterfront park access, we applied for the permit, that's in process. We are finalizing the scope of work as we speak. We should have that hopefully by the end of this week so that we can go out for RFP next week on that.
On the bridge.
Yeah, it's an access bridge.
They got access.
That's the waterfront park.
And that funding is coming from the funding that you originally had set aside for
Parks and tourism.
Parks and tourism.
Yeah. Budget $250,000. The original was going to be for like initial engineering for Relevant Park, but we're going to use that money for this construction of this temporary bridge. So there's no FEMA restrictions on those funds. It's all local funds.
And when they, once they get the pilings in, you said how long?
The access bridge, I think you can get it within a couple of months. I think the biggest issue is building the ramp, which would be off-site, and then they bring it in. So I think that's your biggest hurdle, is constructing it and getting that portion. But then you have a couple of pilings that a landing will be, over the pilings, and then from that landing, it's gonna go down, the gangway is gonna go down.
It's gonna be accessible for ADA.
Yes. It has to.
It has to
It
be.
has to.
So we're gonna be coming up, that's why we're doing the permitting and we're going to get our.
Yeah.
Our E will go out contingent upon permits.
And we're hoping that there's no contingency on, or no contingent on managing, or it could, because it'll be on the permit on that one. This one is not FEMA funded, so it won't be on the FEMA requirements, but it will be, could be on permitting, but because it's not over water very much, I've.
Thank you.
The next project will be the Washington Street project. The first phase is complete now, and we've started on the second phase, which deals with the site furnishings, the playground equipment. They all have been ordered. Currently, they're installing all the pervious sidewalks, and they're hoping to have all the concrete work done in the next 2 weeks, and then early in March, they're gonna start the landscaping. And we've been meeting twice a month down there with the committee and going over, and they're really excited, and they're looking forward to getting their park up and going. The next project we'll discuss is the Southside Park Phase 2. This project has been broken down into 5 phases. The first phase has already been completed. So right now we're working on the second phase, and the second phase is made up of consists of the disc golf course, the dog park improvements, ADA compliant parking improvements, and a water service upgrades for the dogs. Right now, we're waiting for Davison Floyd to give us the latest cost analysis on what they feel like this phase will cost, and as soon as we get this, then we'll go ahead and put that out for bids.
So I'm a little confused on this project, actually. And I'll tell you why,
Can
because
you open that up?
Yeah. But I can't have anything to do with the money we spent on.
what's that?
Talking about the money.
Kind of, yeah. So when I was originally thinking about this project and we did the funding, it was project summary, which this is what's still on the portal now, but design in phase 1 to include parking lot, pavilion, and restrooms, 2 age-appropriate playgrounds and safety services, fencing, benches, picnic tables, fountains, and landscaping. Phase 2 to include the remaining master plan items: fitness nodes, enhanced streetscape, festival lawn, bathroom upgrade, improved parking with connection to Waddell Park, renovated dog parks, walking paths, wetlands, and disc golf. So I had this as 2 phases, and we had the 7.1 that we bonded for, which was for this park and for the Washington Street Park. And I think that 6.5 million or so was for South Side, and then the remainder was for Washington Street Park. And in November, I was a little caught off guard when Raul said that the phase 2 for South Side was quoted at $6.6 million, because I'm like, well, hold on, is that an additional 6.6 million? I've never heard of phase 2 being an additional $6 million, but that's what he had said. And so now looking at it, it looks like online we have, $1.7 million or so still left in the remaining budget for this project. And it looks like, based on the report here today, that it's been, phase 2 has kind of been consolidated to be disc golf, dog park improvements, ADA parking, water service upgrades. So the remainder of what I just read in phase 2 has been knocked off. And in the price breakdown that Raul provided in that meeting in November, if I go back and look at just this disc golf, dog park improvements, ADA, water service upgrades to the dog park, it comes out to about 1.9 million. So I would expect to see whatever they provide us somewhere in that $2 million range, but it still doesn't get us to the finish line on this project. And it sounds like there's, several more phases. Maybe it's just me missing something, but I'm not sure how this project has gone from potentially, $6.6 million to 10 million plus in multiple phases. And even in this proposed plan here for phase 2, that's not a whole lot for 2 million. So this project, if I'm being honest, I'm a little bit confused at how we got to where we are right now, but I'm very reluctant to continue providing support into phase 2, knowing that we have the waterfront park still in front of us. And that is, you'll hear me say this over and over again. I mean, it's number one priority for me. And so I'm thinking that what we need to do is recalibrate some of these things, especially if the cost is far exceeding what we originally thought that it would. And in this case, it almost presents like that is what's happened. But again, I don't want to be missing anything either. So I didn't know if maybe you bring me up to how we got to where we're at now.
I think all your questions are pretty valid, to be honest. My initial understanding was Southside Park was 2 phases. So I'm not sure how we got to 5 phases, but we'll pull that back and take a look at it. But we will have an opportunity to calibrate where we're going with our capital projects funds when we put the FY27 budget together. So council will have ultimate input on that decision. So if there are any funds that we had previously forecasted for Southside Park future phases, that will be council's opportunity to reprioritize those funds and put them into waterfront park. So.
And did phase 1 include the renovation of the existing bathrooms, the ones on the far end? Or no?
No,
Just the new ones.
just the new ones. I believe there's like 1.5 still available for the second phase.
Right. Which just looking back, that's originally what was taken care of. The remainder of this project was 1.5. So initially we were spending like 4.4, whatever it was, to get through phase 1. And then you had the 1.5 or so remaining that was to complete the rest of the master plan for phase 2. Now it was like, when he said $6 million for phase 2 the other day, I was almost like, I don't want to dig in there because maybe I just hearing this wrong, but there's no way that now we're looking at a phase 2 that's going to be an additional $6 million. I mean, that just wouldn't even be something that would even remotely be close to what I would feel like our responsible decision should be with the waterfront park.
In technical terms, it doesn't pass the check.
That's exactly right.
Trying to figure out where we got the 5 phases. What was kind of morphed into that. It kind of caught me off guard.
Yeah, that's why I wish I had an answer for you. I don't know how we went from 2 phases to 5. But we'll find out. Now that.
So this is Mitch. Can everyone hear me?
Yes.
So when it comes to the phases and whether it's just one phase left or do we have 5 phases, that's something that the task force determines. And if yes, I think it would be easy to go and ask the task force chairperson, to clarify that rather than waiting.
Linda, do you have any insight on that?
Yes, I can give you some.
Okay, please. She's been working with that task force. You're on the task force. You don't.
So originally, when the task force was developed, they did a survey. The survey went out and we got 3,000 responses. During those 3,000, in that the task force took all of the responses and they gave you 5 phases during that presentation. We said, this is the most important. Playground, pavilion, multipurpose lawn, dog park, multipurpose lawns, and they listed it out in 5 different phases because we knew we didn't have enough money for that. And so it was originally presented to council as a 5-phase approach.
That was back in like 21 or 20, right? So,
Yeah, that
yeah.
was way back there.
Yeah.
So then when we went out for bonding and we had the 6 million is what it was estimated at back then in 21. So we all know that costs have gone like double or triple or whatever. So once we got the bonding, when we did the bonding, we used the estimate that was what was originally from the master plan of 6 million. When we were ready to do the playground and the pavilion, because that was what was the consensus is we want the pavilion and we want the playground. So that was phase 1 and phase 2, original phase 1 and phase 2, a portion of phase 2 that was kind of put together and said, we'll do that. We'll do the playground and the pavilion. And then the rest of it, which we thought was only $6 million, was we went out for the bond, right? Is it a bond?
Yeah.
The Parks and Tourism bond. Fast forward another few years, and here we are ready to do phase 2, which would be the rest. We got a cost estimate and they went, you're not gonna make it in 6 million now. When you redo the estimates. And so then they took what was the most important in the next phase of the original 5 phases, and dog park was the next one that was so important. Then I believe it's multi-purpose fields and the trails and the fitness nodes. All of that came out of that first recommendation. So our consultants have looked at it and said, this is what you can afford. This is what you can do is what the list is today with the amount of money we had, and the rest of it's going to have to come in different phases. And we said, can you break it down in what makes sense? Because we know we're not going to have another multi-million dollars to come back. And that's how you ended back up at 5 phases. Does that make sense? Kind of.
Yes, it's just super unfortunate that we went off of old bid numbers because now you have this massive shortfall in this reprioritization that took place. And the reality is I don't know, I can't speak for the others, but it was a tough sell for me when we did a $6 million park. But I think that it was appreciated by the community, right? And it's something that was long awaited for. But there's no way that I would support a $10 or a $12 million park to get what we originally wanted to put out there, right? That's just too much, especially now with the waterfront park. So it's unfortunate because we have this massive shortfall, but we'll have to figure out how to navigate from here. It's just, I'm not sure why we used the, you know, numbers that were at that point already 2 or 3 years old and potentially well off the mark of what it was actually gonna cost.
I agree. I just know that whenever we got back into the meetings, that was exactly, it was like, wait a minute, that's what we thought it was. And so we were just trying to be with what we had, what we knew was obligated. Now, I will say, we were updated on the amount just recently at our last CIP meeting last week. And was told, because we were giving them, pick the elements that equal $1 million. So the list that Brian just gave you was the $1 million mark. We still have another 0.7 that we're gonna go back to our consultants and say, add a couple more elements to get to that 1.7 million. And what makes sense, that's when you do your park, what makes sense for allowing people to come in, park, do what they need to do.
For purpose of Councilman Scaletti, the last time the Waterfront Park Committee met has been quite a while, correct? It's been a while because we were not privy to any of this.
You mean Southside?
Southside Park, I mean.
Waterfront Park.
Southside Park. Yeah, Southside
The
Park.
task force was to come up with what do you want and how do you want to.
But we have not met since then, and so we weren't privileged to any of this.
And to that point, we asked to bring them together on multiple occasions since, and only 2 have showed up at meetings, 2 or 3.
In this, we have ADA parking improvements for phase 2. Didn't they do that when they did the parking in phase 1? Because
It'd be over by the dog park.
This is by the dog
By
park.
the dog park.
Okay, gotcha.
Is this is the parking on the dog park side.
And of the amenities at the park, I mean, the dog park is, if you go there any day in the afternoon, late mornings, afternoons, you'll see how widely it's used. The playground, it's just monstrous.
It's the only dog park.
Yes. So both of those amenities are very, very, very much in use, and the dog park could use the upgrade.
Hey, this is Mitch again. To Councilman Scaletti's comments, and given the situation we find ourselves in with Chambers Waterfront Park, I just want to throw the idea out as, I'm wondering whether this is not a time we may want to reassess the priorities, not necessarily to change the work that needs to be, or is desired to be done at Southside Park, and the work that needs to be done at Chambers Park. And I say the work that is desired to be done at Southside, because while Southside is a very desirable, and with the community being the largest community in the city, oh boy. Can everyone hear me still?
Yeah, we can hear you.
Yeah, that's fine.
Okay, I just got a message on my, but as long as you can hear me, I'm just wondering that, maybe we should pause and think about maybe putting the emphasis for now on Chambers Waterfront Park, because that's almost an emergency, whereas the delay the work that needs to be done or is desirable to be done at Southside. I don't think that falls in the emergency category. So I think would do both, but maybe do a refocus for now in priority and funding, to try to get Chambers Park and make sure Chambers Park happen, and then come back and finish the work at Southside.
And I would agree with that, Mitch. I think that it's a very good point. And, the difference in my mind is they're both very important parks. There's no doubt about that. And you do have a large neighborhood of people, and even ones that don't live in the neighborhood, that appreciate and use Southside Park. But downtown, it affects our economy. And so it's different in that sense, because you have businesses that are operating in that realm. And so for me, it is an emergency, it is priority. And so as the conversation unfolds, I'm sure that we will see a refocus and a recalibration to a degree on, maybe recommitting funds or however that shakes out. I agree with you.
And I think when we get into the budget season, we're gonna be discussing all of this, plus we're gonna be also focusing on those core functions. That we need to prioritize everything that we do going forward. And to your point, Josh and Mitch, waterfront parks number one.
Yeah.
So,
That's the value of workshops like this, so you can have those discussions and reprioritization can take place and set the stage for that. I guess my input would be, I don't know that it has to be an all or nothing phase. The dog park is used frequently. So we may want to consider maybe not the Cadillac version of a dog park, but I think some improvements are probably warranted. Dog park, because
It does need some improvements in there, but
I think disc golf, that can be put on.
disc golf's very inexpensive. So it was a very, very, is it not?
Almost $30,000.
It was 35, I think.
Yeah, I mean, it was a very, very low cost amenity in there, and there's a lot of people in the community that have been just waiting for it. I'd like to see that, also continue, the dog park could be scaled down and then take that remaining to, $750 and whatever else is remaining, so it'd be almost probably close to $1 million, we probably could put towards waterfront park and still do south side.
Realistically, there's not enough bandwidth right now to go out and submit a proposal for bids on construction. So we've got a while to think about that, and we can prioritize this, we get some of it. But this is great discussion too.
you on the south side?
The next project, we'll discuss the first South Carolina Volunteer Park. The city and its stakeholders continue productive discussion as the project gains momentum towards planning and design. I don't know if anybody has looked over the past few weeks, but Davis and Floyd surveyed the property. And we have awarded Davis and Floyd the contract to do the initial design work on the project. Our next meeting is scheduled for March 12th. The next project is Duke Street. I know this project has been on everybody's minds for a long time, but I think we're getting close to beginning. Davis and Floyd anticipates completing all necessary permitting and documents by the end of February. Coordination with SCDOT and local utilities providers is ongoing as several utility conflicts must be resolved prior to permitting. Beaufort Jasper Water and Sewer Authority is currently finishing up drafting on their potential utility relocations plans.
So, you said the end of February, they'd have all the permitting done for Duke Street?
They have all the work done they needed to submit the.
Okay.
They have some utility conflicts they need to resolve. Electric and water sewer.
Right now, they've reached out to all the different underground utility providers, and the one they're waiting on right now is Beaufort Jasper Water and Sewer. I think the rest of them have already done their portion. There is one fiber optic line that's under the sidewalk, but they don't really feel like that's going to be a problem. This particular project is an ARPA funded grant, and it's our intentions to use those funds immediately once the project starts.
We have a tentative timeline on when we want to start. I mean, I know we got to go through permitting
yesterday.
I know, I'd like to start yesterday, but I mean, seriously, to let these people know, here's the timeline we're looking at right now.
I would like to feel like we can start in April.
And that gets us to the point to where we start in April, we use our ARPA funding first to ensure that that funding is spent
Sure, right.
before the deadline. And then obviously the hopes would be to get it done as fast as we can, but at least get that portion.
And this is another project where we can go out for the RFP simultaneously with the process to kind of fast track it.
Dave and I have been out and talked to the residents out there on numerous occasions. We try to keep them as informed as possible. I mean, I know they're getting very frustrated, so we need to get that project.
It's been 14 years. They've been waiting, so I'd like to get it done as soon as possible.
Every time I go out there, I get hot lips and cold shoulders, but I think they know the city cares about them and we want that project completed. The next project we'll talk about is the Bayard Street. This project addresses failing drainage infrastructure serving Bayard Street, New Street, and East Street. The city is awaiting final engineering and design plans from Davis and Floyd before proceeding with the regulatory permitting and bidding. This project was broken down into 2 phases. The first phase was the design and the engineering, and they're about ready to finish that up. I am hoping within 30 days, we start the second phase. Did you have anything on that? It's right under, you see? The majority of all the engineering work has been completed. It's right. The next project is the Pigeon Point Stormwater Study. The city of Beaufort has issued a request for qualifications for the project and is currently in the consultant selection phases. Once awarded, the drainage and stormwater related engineering services will commence. The city manager will present its recommendations to the city council during the regular March 10th meeting.
And my recollection of that is that's basically funded with grant funding, right? That we thought we lost and then we got back. So that's a grant funded expenditure, at least the study portion. Yeah.
Yes, great.
Okay. And I know that in some of these, I mean, obviously, we're already so far along that the only thing that does make sense is to continue and try to get to the finish line. And it is unfortunate, because even with the waterfront being priority, it's like you can't just drop everything that you're doing and do that. Hopefully we'll find some room to shift funds and restructure our focus a bit. But as we move forward, I also want to just throw this out there because I think that our consultants and the firms that we communicate with on a regular basis, they're good and they do a good job for us and they really try to. But we have a lot of overlap there. And what I wouldn't want to do is I wouldn't want to bog any one firm down so much because we're throwing so many projects at them that they're taking longer to get our priority projects across checkpoints because we're continuing to throw new projects into the mix and providing those awards, and now their bandwidth is constrained as well, right? So I just want us to be very thoughtful about that as we move forward too, because there is that reality that, we're taking resources and spreading them so thin in some cases that, we may see delays on the waterfront park, and I don't want to see that. So I don't know if that is a concern for anybody else, but as I hear, a lot of the same firms working on, almost all of our projects, I'm sure several other projects out in the county, I just wonder if we're not putting them in a situation to where it's hard for them to meet deadlines.
Yeah, we should have a preferred list of a couple. I mean,
yeah,
at least 2 or 3 engineering firms, don't we?
Well, no, we don't have a list of preferred firms. Our procurement process allows all to compete fairly for it, but I understand what you're saying. However,
these firms are also answering bids from other organizations and other governments.
But to his point,
Yeah, so they're getting spread pretty thin. I guess where I'm going with this is, I'd rather us be in their line than someone else be ahead of us in their line.
Well, to that point, I think that some of these projects have probably got put on the back burner. And that's what concerns me, because we're a small town, these are small projects compared to what they're getting everywhere else, so. We need to be able to light a fire and say, look, you're our preferred guy, can you do it, yes or no, if not, I think we need to widen our net, if you will.
Cast as wide enough as we can now.
We have at least, with Davis and Floyd, we have meetings all week long and we discuss these projects and some of these projects, we may have 3 meetings a week on them. So they do provide a great service to the city.
I mean, I don't think there's any doubt. There's no disputing that at all. And maybe it's just as simple as, I don't know their bandwidth or what they're able to take on, but maybe it's just as simple as, for us here in the city, this is a list of our priorities. This is what we want done first. If you are limited and you don't have time for all of this, this is where we want your focus. You know what I mean? Maybe it's just that kind of conversation. I'm not sure. But I do feel like in some cases where I was hoping that we'd receive stuff back, already, we haven't. And it could be for several reasons, but I'm just putting that out there on the table.
Well, I agree. It does get frustrating when you need that information now and you have to wait 2 or 3 weeks to get it.
One thing we didn't talk about was the waterfront part, period. Is there anything that can be said where we are on there?
So I would just say that the Waterfront Advisory Committee has drafted a summary of where we're at. So you guys will be seeing that, and basically I'll provide it to the council for the chairman's request. And then if you guys have any questions, then either it could be answered with him formally coming in and answering those questions in a meeting, or whatever is the most appropriate and easiest way to do that. But it's just in a summary of some of what our discussions have been. It's not a fulfillment of the committee's original charge, because that summary has already been provided. We are still expecting the design alternatives in the first quarter. We have completed the survey. We've tabulated the survey. We are publicly adding the survey question summaries and all of the individual responses to each question to our last Waterfront Advisory Committee minutes, so that will be publicly available. So really the next step, and then you guys saw the email from NOAA about the funding opportunities for grants. So we've got that, and then with Shannon Erickson.
We have a request in for earmark through the General Assembly. Alan is also, I believe, either has submitted or is going to submit a request through Senator Graham's office as well for earmark. So we're hoping that awards from those two processes will carry us through the engineering portion once council lands on the design. So the next critical phase, or the next critical task, really be to have that charrette to finish the public input process into what your solution will be, and then choose a solution and get that engineered, so we know it's gonna cost.
And one of the things, real quick, one of the things that the engineering firm was talking about was using, kind of like they did with the Pigeon Point Landing, using the survey as an overlay to help guide the design of those alternatives. So it does matter. We didn't get as many responses as we originally hoped. We got 1777, I think. But you could see just a peek behind the curtain of what some of the overlapping concerns were from constituents that took it. So
I'd just like to say something. I was listening to you talk about how you're supporting all these other projects and everything. The waterfront park, yes, that is a very big priority. We've got a lot of grant funding and everything. Pigeon Point, that's a very important thing to me also. Everything with the neighborhoods, Pigeon Point, the drainage pot projects, everything else. But you want to kind of like throw Southside Park under the bus. This has been promised to the neighborhood for over 25 years. 25 years. When I came on council, it was 20 years plus that had been promised to the neighborhood. And then we're trying to make headway into this little by little. I just say take the baby steps like our city manager said, and Scott Marshall said, take the baby steps, do the fix-ups on the dog park, do the disc golf, and then just over time take each phase as it comes. But the waterfront park still remains a priority, but I still say this, not the full amount, but we do commit funds for Southside Park. Like I say, it's a 25-year plus promise to the neighborhood, and it is the biggest neighborhood in the city of Beaufort. And I totally support doing something with Southside.
We do something, but it's gotta be priority. It's the most important thing that needs to be done.
Well, it'd be done, but we can also be putting those funds towards the waterfront park too, the leftover. We'll have, what, 0.7 or more.
That's what I'm
That's why it's
saying.
engineering.
We've got to come up with, or we've got to come up with what we think is the most important step.
I just take that be thrown under the bus because that's, like I said, a 25-year plus promise to the neighborhood that has not been kept. For 20 years, for 20 years it was not
They
kept.
got phase one.
We got phase one, yes, that was the beginning, and.
But we are working on it.
Well, but hold on, because I guess the way you framed that is I threw Southside under the bus and you take exception.
You're saying to
that.
take all the
Hold on,
money from Southside,
hold on.
leftover money,
I let you finish.
okay?
I'm just pointing out that Southside, when it was originally brought to us, as far as I remember, was 6.6 million and 2 phases. Now it's 5 phases and an additional potential $6.5 million just to get to phase 2. So I think that begs the question as to when is it the appropriate time to actually in action determine that the waterfront park is a priority. And I'm not saying that you just can the rest of Southside Park, but I absolutely believe there's merit to the discussion of doing some of the more necessary things now to get it to a stopping point and then taking any additional funds and rolling that over to the waterfront park. But it's not my fault that bid numbers were used that were 3 years old and grossly showed in a deficiency in what it was actually going to cost. I'm just saying that in this point now where we're sitting, we have to make those decisions, and it's not always easy, but the fact is what was originally talked about in that master plan, there's no way that we would be able to spend another $6 million on that part.
I'm not saying do it right now, I'm not saying do it right now, we got that 1.7 million still. I could say we take a
Well,
portion
can I chime in?
million and do Southside Park. That we do a portion of, we finish the dog park, fix up the dog park, we do the disc golf, we take the rest of the money, then we put it towards the engineering of the waterfront park. So we got the most of both worlds. That's what I'm saying.
Yes, Mitch, go ahead.
Yeah, Neil, please don't think that the word throw Southside under the bus, but certainly not my intent. And I just want to make that clear. I think I wouldn't do that. I'm just saying that what do we do now versus what we do later? If we do it later, in my mind, it doesn't mean that we don't do it. It just means that it may be delayed in terms of what may be what I consider possibly an emergency situation with Waterfront Park. It's kind of like we're going to do it all, but maybe we reorder how we and when it's done. But please know, for the people who are listening, that my suggestion that, and I don't know how it would work out, but my suggestion that council give thought to prioritizing which is done and when it's done, for the betterment of the city as a whole. But nothing I said was intended to lessen the importance of getting South Side done. It's just that, well, maybe for now, we divert attention more to what I see as the more immediate problem. But, you know, my thought is that we get it all done, but maybe we need to do a little shifting of the priority. So just want to make that clear.
Yeah, well, I was getting at, we do it in piecemeals where we do, some of South Side, you use some of the money that we'd already borrowed towards it. We use some of that and then we put the rest of it towards the waterfront park where we can be using it both places is what I was getting at. Not just take it all and just take it all away from South Side. I think we can do some, significant improvement to the dog park and we can get the disc golf done. And still.
Yeah, I think we have the expertise. You know, that's something that maybe Alan can help us, you know, and Scott, you know, with the numbers and how we move things around. So, you know, that's I would have to defer to folks who are more on top of that kind of thing. But yeah, just know that I wasn't lessening the importance of South Side.
Okay.
Well, anything that we do, we get estimates, and every time it seems like those estimates are very low. Because when we get to go out for bid and they come back, there's sometimes 30% or plus higher. So going forward, like I said, we have to prioritize, we have to look hard and long about funding these things and doing it the right way. So with that, is there anything else, Brian, that you have?
No, sir.
Okay, I'm gonna open it up to the public. Anybody have any comments, like to say something? Greg, I see you chomping at the bit.
No, we're all good.
Okay.
Zach answered my question in the first 5 minutes, so we're good.
Okay. Anyone else?
Is that still for public?
Or anybody? Hear anything?
I was just gonna say, coming back to a question from the strategic session, because I think a lot of our decision moving forward will be somewhat hinging on this, the answer to this question, and this is an Alan question, and so it's just kind of like a reminder, but it would be important for me to know what our borrowing power is. You know, we have the 6 or so bonds in place, revenue and general obligation bonds, but with those in place, what is our existing borrowing power? What is our expected borrowing power for the next 5 years? Because that's going to tell us a little bit more as to what room we still have to factor in the waterfront and maybe how much money we need to start trying to set aside for that, right? And I know maybe you don't have it now, but I just wanted to remind you that that's going to be an important question.
Yeah, we're capped at 8% of the total value of the property in the city in terms of a GO bond. Revenue bonds, as long as you got money coming in and you pay the bills, you can do whatever. But at the 8%, I don't know how many GO bonds we still have outstanding.
Just have a few, and then some of them will be paid off the next couple of years or so. They extend out for a period of time, but I was looking at the principal payments or how the structure we pay more principal payments at the end, and then it kind of feels resolved at the last 5 years or so. We're all paying just a fraction of what we had been paying. I feel like this is a good time to bring in our financial advisor for a try, and they do the projections and the forecasting, so they can kind of give us a little more clarity. And we'll do a workshop just to kind of look at that, just to see where we stand, because definitely we'll get focus as far as the geo side, my capacity, but also the revenue bond side as well, kind of see where we are with that.
Because that's going to beg the question when we get to the property out that we own, if we want to sell some of those are bonded. I think GO bonds on some of those assets.
Yeah, and then we've already paid off College Park on. Already paid off.
Okay.
Really the 1100 Boundary Street is still bonded. So that's something we could potentially sell that property. We could pay off a portion of that bond on the south.
And also, I'd like to know what of that 8% cushion, how much of a cushion do we need? In other words, I don't want to, because we could use the whole 8% probably towards the waterfront park. We had to, but you don't want.
Where does that put us? Right.
You don't want to do that. Hopefully, we'll get it all in grant money. We won't have to use.
Either the grants or some kind of local match. So we'll imagine we have to do some kind of borrowing just to show.
Well, a lot of, a lot of the grants obviously have matches, but then I think, for us, this is a priority, right? We say it all the time, and I think that indeed, we need to follow through with that. And if we're asking somebody else for money, we're asking them to make it a priority, then we need to show the diligence enough to do the same.
That's skin in the game. Well, anything else?
Hey, Phil, just one closing comment. I just want to welcome Eric on board. Looking forward to meeting you face to face. I also want to recognize Brian for jumping in with this capital improvement project. It's a lot to get your head around. But I noticed the diligence in which you have been working, to get on top of all of this. It's a lot of responsibility, a lot of responses to the community. I just want to let you know that I recognize that, and also now that you have the help of David, I'm sure you appreciate that and the great work he's doing. So that's it for me. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Mitch. Appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you. I appreciate it as well. And I know how much you love public speaking, so yeah, I do.
Well, if there's nothing else, I'm gonna go ahead and adjourn, but I want to thank everybody for showing up this evening and appreciate the input you gave us, and we'll have some more opportunity for you to comment on going forward.
Real quick, Scott, should it be possible if we add the Marina Day dock into this capital project portal, because it's not in there, and I do get a lot of questions about where we're at with that. I think maybe it'd be helpful for this.
It's more of a repair on a capital project, but we can add it.
Okay.
Yeah, I think that'd be good. With that, we're going to adjourn, so thank you all for showing up. Appreciate it. Thank you, Mitch, for joining us. Are you in New Zealand?
Pardon me?
Where are you?
We're off the southwest coast of New Zealand and on our way to Dunedin, Dunedin. It's on the southeast side of New Zealand.
All right, well, have fun.
Thank you, everyone.
Enjoy.
Thank you, guys.